protective bubble wrap, turned on our hazard lights, and made sure the insurance is up to date. Because this is Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Everett Beamer, and we are happy to welcome you along with Kingdom of Night Radio and Revolution Radio to tonight's broadcast. If you happen to miss any part of tonight's show, you can listen to our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including keeping up to date on the weird and wacky news at Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, finding a book to read during these long, dark nights in the We Read the Night section, or joining the Space Travelers Club, where you can check out some exclusive content, read up on all sorts of topics in our forums, and join our always live, ongoing chat. And of course, tonight's show is brought to you by the fine people at Chive Charities. Please head on over to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, chivecharities.org, as we work to make the world 10% better. Now tonight, I'm ecstatic. We have the icon, the legend, Grant Cameron. We're going to go over how he got into ufology, things he's working on. I don't even know how to introduce him because you've seen him on TV, you've seen his lectures, you've heard him on different shows. He's on Dave's show quite a bit. Grant, I want to say thank you so much for being here, especially on short notice.
Well, thank you, Everett. I appreciate the chance. Anytime I get a chance to tell some stories, I'm game, because the more I tell the stories, the more insight I get myself, and the easier I'm able to remember the stuff that's happened. And there's a lot of stuff that's happened in my life. I've been, as I pointed out, 45 years. As of May, it'll be 45 years since I joined the circus.
You know, I want to talk about that a little bit, because we've seen you on different TV shows and heard you and read your books. But the one thing that, especially with longtime researchers like you, often gets forgotten is how you got into the field. And I know there's one particular event that really spurred it, but can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved? Because it seems like there are not that many opportunities for you to kind of tell the story, and a lot of people maybe don't know it.
Yeah. It was, as with a lot of people, an experience I had. Now, you have to sort of set the background. I was at university at the time, 1975. I had no interest in UFOs. I can never remember even having thought about extraterrestrial life. I was interested in Edgar Casey. I was interested in weird sort of stuff. And I was interested in, I had done a course on death and dying at the university. And I had spent the entire term doing a paper at the hospitals, looking at dying people in the hospital. And I would go to the chaplains, not to the doctors or the nurses. I'd go to the chaplains, and I would basically ask the question, did anybody ever come to see these people before they died? And anybody ever have a near-death experience? Because this is when it started. I mean, CPR was only invented in the late 50s, early 60s. So the near-death experience was just getting going. The first book had been published. So I wanted to ask about that. And I would ask, does anybody ever predict they're going to die? And they would go, oh, yeah, that happens. And I go, did anybody ever get up and walk out when they're ready to die and there's a miracle? And they'd say, oh, yeah, they always come back. But yeah, there's people who do that. So I had this weird sort of fascination with death. And so what happened was I was going to university, and I was totally distraught. I remember calculus. I was wondering, what the heck are you going to do with this? How do you make any money out of this nonsense? I just couldn't figure out anything that I was learning there that how do you make money out of this thing? It was just garbage. So it was that sort of background where what happens is in April of 1975 in Carman, Manitoba, Canada, somebody sees a UFO, and it sort of is seen by a number of people. It makes the paper here. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is a pretty big city, 700,000 people. And so the story was out there, and then there was another one next night, and the news started to pick it up, like the newspapers, and they would be on TV that this town had seen it. And it sort of just kept going for a little while, and I said to my friend that I still have coffee with every Saturday, I said, Larry, we drive around the city. We just drive around and do nothing and, kill time or whatever. why don't we go out and see what they're looking at? And I didn't know. I just heard that people were seeing this. And it was sort of like, I always describe it as you buy the lottery ticket with knowing the fact that you could win, but you're not going to win. I mean, he said, yeah, we'll go. And this is where 35 years later, I realized this was not a random event. I used to think it was random. But so we went out there. No, we didn't go out. We were supposed to be February. We didn't go out. And we forgot about it. We just went back to driving around the city and playing football and, going to university and, just doing whatever. And then in May of 1975, CKY TV here in Winnipeg, which is the sort of the independent affiliate, CBC and CTV were both out there trying to film this thing. And because it was being reported all the time. And the guy that was running the airport, Bob Deemert, was taking these people on tours. And there was people all over the place trying to see this thing. So they went out in about the second week of May, and what happens is the night before, the TV crew gets this thing, and they just about get it. They see it on the ground, or they see it in the sky or something, and they don't get any film of it. So they go back to the news producer, or the assistant news producer at CKY TV, and they say, man, we just about got it. We're going back out tomorrow night. And the guy said, he swore at him. He said, yeah, you're not going anywhere. I'm not paying any more overtime. This is total nonsense. Anybody wants to go and chase this stupid flying saucer or whatever, they can go on their own time. So these guys they almost got it. They were they had gone down the rabbit hole. So what they did is they got a guy who had never shot a TV camera before, and this is in the 70s, so these giant TV cameras, and so they got a film editor, and he'd never shot a film before, and all these guys were volunteered. So they went out, and sure enough, this thing was on the ground north of the town, down this, what we call a mile road. So every mile north and south has a road, like a straight as can be. And so you can actually tell in the countryside where you are by how many mile roads you've moved up. You can 1 mile north and 1 mile east and stuff. So this, we learned out later, it was 8.25 miles down the road. And this CBC, or this CKY TV crew is standing there on the road. So they send one car a mile south down the mile road and a mile north of the object, to go down, and they're going to cut across and hopefully run into it. So they take off, and the car on the north side actually makes the turn when they think it's about where this object was sitting on the ground, and they see a 50-foot saucer, blood red, hovering above the ground. It was like a TV. It was like a drive-in movie screen, but it wasn't touching the ground. And there was a hedge of trees there. And they went, wow. And these were pilots. I think there was 3 pilots that night in these cars. And so they were taking their bearings, because you're out in the middle of nowhere. And they're taking their bearings by the microwave towers and town lights and stuff as to where they are in the countryside. Meanwhile, the TV guy, and this is where this random thing comes from. So the guy, the film editor, I interview all these guys. And I got a copy of the 3rd generation copy of this tape that they got. And he's down at the end of the road. And again, he's never shot a TV camera before in his life. And he's looking through the viewfinder, and he's seeing this object down, and he doesn't know how far it's away, but it's sort of there, and it's glowing up and it's glowing down. It glows up, glows back down. And he realizes the night before they hadn't got anything. So he says, the next time this thing glows up, I'm going to shoot so that I get something on film. And it was almost like the UFO said, okay, you ready to shoot? Because he said, as soon as it started to glow up, he pushed the trigger, and this thing jumped in the sky. Now, J. Allen Hynek came, he was the big researcher in the United States at the time. He came and he said it was the best nocturnal light film they'd ever seen. And there was estimates that this thing had jumped 5,000 feet in 3 frames. So it's shooting 24 frames a second. And from the first to the 3rd frame, it had moved 5,000 feet in the air from the ground, sitting on the ground. And, people were talking 35,000 miles an hour and all these different figures or whatever. So anyway, this thing jumps in the air, and it's what's called a flash frame. So the first frame, it's sitting on the ground. The second frame is what's called a flash frame, where the entire horizon lights up for 1/24th of a second. It lights up the entire horizon, and these big humps of light, you can see the horizon. And in the 3rd frame, this thing is up at the top of the frame of this camera that's 8 miles away. So anyway, I interview all these guys. I hear that, well, no, these guys they got this film, and it was on CKY, and they did this 8-minute documentary, and they slow it down frame by frame, and you can see this thing is flying on a wave. It's going up and down, and it's flashing, it's rotating, and they did this long documentary on this thing. And I said to Larry, I go, come on, let's go see what they're looking at. Look, they got a film of this thing now. So we went out and we drove to this town called Carmen. It's about 35 miles southwest of where I live. And we drove out there, and I said, again, I was like, you buy the lottery ticket, you think you're going to win, but you know you're not going to win. You're not going to see anything. Everybody else sees it. Or we're not going to see nothing when we go out there. So we drove into town, out of the town, into town, out of the town, drove around, and we're looking around, and there's three of us. Larry's driving. I'm in the passenger seat, and this guy by the name of Bob Rondo, who I've not seen since the event happened, is sitting in the back seat. And so we're driving in and out of the town, and we're looking around at the sky, and we're going like, what are they looking at? I knew nothing about astronomy, could care less. So we're looking at, Venus setting and whatever's going on, and I'm going like, whatever it is, it's not very impressive. So that was the key thing. So we're saying, is that what they're looking at? Is that what they're looking at? We're trying to figure out, what is everybody reporting? What's the big news? So we drive, and my friend says, Larry says, okay, we were there for about an hour. He says, okay, we'll drive into town one more time. We're heading back east towards Winnipeg. We'll drive back into town one more time. If we don't see anything, let's go home. I said, fantastic. This has been a total waste of time. He turns the car to go back into town, and it appeared from the left to the right. And this is the key. People will always say, I know what I saw, and this idea. So there are people who believe, and then there's people who know. And a lot of people who believe think they know, but not until you have the experience do you know. So when it appeared from the left, nobody in the car said, is that what they're looking for? Is that what it is? I wonder if that's what they're looking at. Everybody just went, there it is. It's like, oh my God. Everybody knew instantly this is what because it was just so weird. It was like, wow. And I've never in my life seen anything that even came close to it after 45 years. But it was like a plasma object. Because it was plasma and because it's at night, you can't tell how far it's away, or I just know it was very close to the ground. It was longer than it was high, so it may have been a saucer shape. Very, very intense sort of red light, and it was pulsing very, very slowly like a heart. It was almost like it was alive, and it was coming, and it flew right in front of the car. It was down really, really low, maybe a couple hundred feet. Hard to tell because you got no frame of reference at night. Looked like it was maybe a quarter mile down, maybe a half mile down the road, a couple hundred feet off the ground, and right in front of the car. And it was bobbing up and down. I could see this. It wasn't flying in a straight line. It was like a bobber on a fishing line. It was sort of moving up and down. And I remember the car hadn't even stopped. So we're stopping because there was a bunch of school buses there. And I could tell it was going to go behind these school buses. And I wanted to keep an eye on, I wanted to see this thing. I knew it was about to disappear behind these school buses. So I'm actually getting out of the car, and the car's still moving. I'm trying to get through the ditch and across this parking lot. And I remember I went to these buses, and I went in between these buses, and I just watched this thing slowly pulsing off into the northeast. It was just flying. And it occurred to me, not so much the first night, but the second night, I was thinking, like, what's it doing? It's not doing anything. It's just like flying along. It was just weird. It was like, and we used to actually make a good joke. It was making the beer run because people used to say it was coming out of the United States, and it would make the beer run. It would pick up its beer and then it would go back to the United States. So we make these jokes because we can figure why this thing was at Carmen, because Carmen is nothing. There's no industry. It's just a small town in the middle of grain farms and stuff like that. There's nothing there. 2,000 people. And so the second night, so then I was like hooked, and my friend, I have coffee with him all the time. He's never talked about it to anybody in his whole life. And so I fell off the edge of the earth. I couldn't believe it. I said, holy cow. I get all my friends. I gather them together. I said, man, you got to come to Carmen, man. I saw this thing. It's unbelievable. And I talk a bunch of my friends into coming out there. And of course, I'm looking for the airport because I heard that the Carmen airport was where they were seeing this thing all the time because Bob Deemert, who ran the airport, was like the tour guide. He was taking the TV crews out and stuff. And we couldn't find the airport because it's just a small airport. They don't have lights on at night. So we were actually standing at the end of the runway. I didn't realize we were there. And I'm waiting, and there's like 28 people. There's people from everywhere. There's kids out there, as like any small town. There's kids out in the back road, and they got a case of beer, and they're standing there, and they're drinking beer, and there's cars everywhere. And where we were, there was 28 people when it started. And it was just in the middle, just some road in the middle of nowhere. There was no, central point or whatever. And I remember all my friends, it was an hour later, and then they said, yeah, I don't know, Cameron. We're going back. I said, no, you got to see this. You got to see this. This is change your life, man. Stay. You got to see this, man. It's just unbelievable. And I still remember they said, nah, we're hungry. We're going back to Winnipeg for pizza. And all my friends left. And when it finally came the second night, it came about maybe 15, 20 minutes, I'm guessing, after my friends all left. And remember, there's two cars. There was our car, and we had these kids who were about 14, 15 years old doing science fair projects, and they lived on the street. And we grabbed these kids, and we took them along. And they're sitting in the field, and we're sitting on this road, and then there's this car, which was a Roadrunner courier car. I remember, and they don't exist anymore, but they had 3 guys and a girl. And this was in 1975, so the guy had a motor drive on a Nikon camera. This is when motor drives first came out, where it would advance the film, click, 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 and you could just shoot. You wouldn't have to, with your hand, advance the film. It would automatically do it. And so I remember he had this camera, and I remember there was a flash. So it wasn't the same as the first night. It was this flash in the sky, like someone with a flash cube on the western horizon. And the one kid, I saw it, and the one kid yells out at me, says, "Is that it?" And I go, "I guess so." And then it flashed again, but it was in a different part of the sky. And then it flashed again. And it was like jumping around in the sky, like 8 inches in the field of vision. It was jumping all over the place. And all pandemonium broke loose. It was just the most bizarre thing. People were swearing and they're yelling. These kids are coming out of the field and this thing's flashing. And the poor girl, she's going, "I can't see it." She's crying away. "I can't see it. Someone show it to me. I can't see it." And I could hear the guy's camera. He had the camera on top of the car and it went click, zzz, click, zzz, click, zzz, and he's unloading the camera as this thing's coming at us. And as it got closer, the flashes got closer together. And then it appeared like this object I'd seen the first night, this sort of red pulsing thing, and had a green glow on the back of it. It was coming right at us, really low to the ground. It was coming right at us. And then it sort of made a turn, and it headed off into the northeast. And I remember this car said, "We're going after it." And I remember they jumped in the car, the gravel was flying, and they chased, because the thing was going very, very slow. That's the other thing. It's maybe 30 miles an hour, maybe not even that. We even had points where we were catching up on this thing. It would be flying along. We could actually gain on this thing. So they took off. And so, I'm down the rabbit hole. I was just like, now I know what I'm going to do. At university, this is nonsense. And I still went to university, but it was just like, I became obsessed. I was there every second day. I was interviewing people. I said, this is the biggest story of the world. This whole town, I'd heard half the kids. Well, I did a lecture at the high school. 59% of the kids said they'd seen this in the high school. So it was a big deal. I figured, man, this is the biggest story ever. We've broken the story, and I've figured it out. I tried to get it published, a manuscript. I wrote this manuscript of all these people who had seen stuff and what had happened there. And went to Toronto. A number of people read it, but nobody, really picked it up. And then I sent it to the local publisher here in Winnipeg, and she sort of changed my life. She wrote me back and she said, "Mr. Cameron, you may believe in this kind of stuff. Count me among the unbelievers." And I went, "What? Are you kidding me?" And from that time on, I've never really studied sightings, because I can tell you, I was 4-5 times. I was within a couple hundred yards of this object. I was really close a couple of times. But it's just my story. It doesn't really mean anything. It means a lot to me. It sort of changed my life. But all I was interested in when she gave me this rejection was, I said, somebody's got to know what the heck's going on here. I don't know, somebody's got to know what that thing was. And so I started trying to find the highest level official, the person who would know. And so I chased the Canadian government for a long period of time, and I got some material there. I chased the former president of Penn State University, who had 14 honorary doctorate degrees, who co-developed a homing torpedo, who started DARPA and JASON and all these groups. And he knew what was going on, and he played little games with us, but gave us an indication this was for real. Then I chased the president of the United States, and I've chased the head scientist for the CIA for the last 20 years, trying to find out who's got the answer to what I saw. And that basically sums up. But it basically threw me down this rabbit hole. And everybody else that was around me just went on with their life. Nobody else was affected the same way I was. And then, so I look back 35 years later, and I'm going, if that guy had not got that camera shot where this thing jumps up in the sky and then flies across the sky, and they filmed this thing, I would never have gone, because we had completely forgot about it. We didn't do it. And it was almost like, oh, we need him to come out here, so let's do this thing. It's the only time I've ever heard that a UFO actually got caught on the ground, and a big TV crew was able to film this thing jumping off the ground. And it was like, we need Cameron out there. We need him. And so it was almost like they staged this thing, because there's no way this guy could push the trigger at the same time this thing would jump in the air. It was just, and 35 years later, I'm going, that wasn't random. This was almost like it was intended for me to go out there and to follow this story, because it affected me completely different than everybody else. And you got to remember, half the people in that town saw the thing, and now you go to that town and they don't even remember the story. Most of the people don't even remember that it even happened.
Well, that's one thing that we talk often with William Pullen about some of these flaps, that it seems like they happen and then they're just dismissed and forgotten about. And
Yep.
we just have a few minutes here before we have to go to our first break. And I wanted to ask, as you spent the time going around and interviewing witnesses and people in the area, what kind of response were you getting from them at the time?
It's the same response all the time. It depended who you talk to, which I think is a thing we miss in the UFO community, that the person you're manifesting what you're seeing. But I won't get into that but at this point. But I would go to people, and it would always be the same thing. Somebody would say, okay, this guy saw it. And I'd go to the guy and I'd say, I heard you saw a UFO. Who said that? And I'd say, oh, so-and-so said that. Well, it was really nothing. And I said, oh, well, tell me about it. And then the guy would tell me there's a flying saucer sitting in the middle of the road, and he's trying to get back to his farm. And it would be like totally bizarre story. And then it would always end the same way. It'd say, I was the only one that saw it, And then they would give you another name of 3 people. And so then those 3 people give you 3 people. And at one point I had hundreds of people on a list that hadn't been interviewed. But it was like everybody had seen it, but nobody wanted to talk about it. Because it was like, and it isn't so much anymore. You can say, I saw a UFO. Nobody laughs at you. In those days, the one woman told me, they had a lot of sightings, which you get. You got one farm, which seemed to be the center of the whole thing. And she said she would go into the post office, and it's a small town post office. She said people would see her and turn around and walk out the other door. It was that bad. It was just, you were totally ostracized if you had seen this thing, except for the guy who owned the airport, because he was so powerful that it was sort of okay. He was kind of a crazy guy who owned the airport. But it was a thing. It was a completely different environment of today. Because at that point, you got to realize in 1975, if you saw one UFO, that was bad news. But if you saw 2 UFOs, you were absolutely insane and lying, because it was believed to be a random event. Now we know that a lot of people see that you're an experiencer. You see UFOs all the time. It targets you. You are part of the phenomena. At that point, nobody believed that. No, there was really no abductions to that point. People thought it was a random event, and you just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the right place at the right time. That has completely changed, that attitude as to what are UFOs.
And you know what, Grant? I'm going to get you to hold on for just a second, because we're going to hop out for a break here. But when we come back, I want to dig into that, as well as a little bit of your research regarding the White House and some government documents and things like that. But,
yep.
We're going to step out here for a second. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Sunday.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans. It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines Report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and I thank you for spending your evening with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR Vault, joining the Space Travelers Club, where for $5 a month, you get all kinds of bonus content, forums to chat in, and ongoing live chat. There's a lot going on in there, and you should check it out. we're talking tonight with Grant Cameron. And Grant, if you could finish up quickly about the Charlie Red Star event and how it influenced you.
Yeah. The significant part was I didn't really have any sightings after 76, but I really wasn't looking. But I had 5 really close encounters, and I had the one which I always like to sort of tell if people want to hear a good UFO story. We were watching the big ones fly around, and this is spring of 1976. And I had all these people coming out, and they were going to film, and they were bringing all these elaborate cameras and university people. And it's like, oh, I can get it on film. And so I was bringing all these people out, and we were sitting there waiting for the big ones to fly by, and nothing was coming. And right after sunset, and then we suddenly saw these orange lights all over the ground, and we go, what's that? It's like they're like oranges. I mean, they're like farm lights, but they were like as oranges. And to make a long story short, we ended up maybe half an hour later at a bridge where this thing was there. We go on the bridge and it's gone. We're looking under the bridge. We go down towards the U.S. We look back. It's on the bridge again. We go back to the bridge. And then we're really looking under the bridge because it looked like it turned its light off. And drive back into the north. Then we get about a quarter mile down. And I said to my friend, man, it's back on the bridge. Come on, let's walk this time. So I got an 8mm movie camera. And I'm shooting. It takes 7 steps, 3 seconds of film, 7 steps, 3 seconds of film. Because I realized this thing's eventually going to take off. And suddenly I'm there. I'm right there. I'm so close. And it was like the almost a thing where you're like Peter, unless I touch the wounds, I'm not going to believe that Jesus, died. And I'm going, I got to touch this thing, man. And I knew we had the famous case here with Stephen Michalak, where he was burned very badly in 1967. And I knew that case. I knew that he'd been burned, and I knew I could be very badly injured. But I said, I got to touch this thing. I'm right there. And I told my friend, I said, hold the camera. I'm going to jump on it. And he said, well, hang on. He's got binoculars. He says, I think there's one sitting on top of the car. And I look, and this thing's on top of the car. It looked like the sun coming up in the north, and this orange smoke hanging down. And so it's those kind of experiences. I had one later with the RCMP I dragged the RCMP. They came as this event was happening. And this thing was sitting right on top of the car, and it was a huge triangle. So in 76, there was no triangles. I don't care what anybody says. There may have been the odd case, but these triangles were flying around. And this thing came, I was bugging these little lights on the ground by flashing lights at them, and they would respond. They would do whatever you did with the flashlight. And suddenly this big thing came from the U.S., border area, and it moved right and sat on top of the car, and it was this huge triangle of lights. The lights are maybe 5-10 feet across, 2 red lights and a green light in the back, with the front end of the triangle, the point of the triangle facing towards me. So it was those kind of experiences that sort of led me to know that there's absolutely no point, because I think the vast majority of the UFO community, it's almost like, what's the definition of insanity? You keep running the same play, the same, investigation, hoping you're going to come to a different conclusion. And we've been, since 47, we're trying to prove UFOs exist. And I've never fallen into that trap because I was so close. I had so many really close experiences. I've never gone in that trap of trying to prove to people. I could care less, because I know most friends and relatives don't care about it. I don't try to convince anybody. I know what I saw. And so that's where I got into this thing to go to the president. I said, somebody's got to know what this thing was. I need to know. That's all I'm interested in. I don't need to see anything more. I'm not interested. I just want to know what's going on.
Now, what led you to go right to the White House versus being in Canada versus your government in Ontario?
Okay, so, I'm in Manitoba, but here's what happened. So here you get these synchronicities. And now I'm looking back at my life. I've had these really bizarre synchronicities where I know now and I'd had one last Sunday, really bizarre synchronicity with a girl in Toronto. And I know when you get these synchronicities, that's the road you take. Take a turn, go down that road. Don't worry about anything. You got to go down this road. So what happens is my father worked for the Department of Transport. Now, the Department of Transport is the organization in the Canadian government that ran the flying saucer program. It was called Project Magnet. It was run by the Department of Transport. There was one in the Defense Department called Project Second Story, but it was much more minor. The big one was the Department of Transport, and it was run by a guy named Wilbert Brockhouse Smith. And my father worked for the Department of Transport, the same agency, but we were in Winnipeg. He had nothing to do with UFOs or anything. And so anyway, you get this bizarre synchronicity, almost like the guy where he pushes the trigger as this thing jumps in the sky. So my father says, Ernie Epp said he had a UFO sighting. He'd like to talk to you. And that was a guy who worked in his office. So I said, okay. So I tracked this Ernie Epp guy, and I go talk to him, and it's just an ordinary sighting. He saw some, I don't even remember what it was, some light in the sky or something in that particular time frame in that area. So I says, and I'm talking to him, and then so I'm ready to go, and he says, if you really want to know what's going on with flying saucers, you should investigate what the Canadian government did. And I go, oh yeah, really? And he said, yeah, I used to work for the program. I said, you did? And he said, yeah, it was run by Wilbert Smith, and the guy was the smartest engineer I ever met in my life. But he was totally nuts, man. He was talking to aliens, and they're landing in his backyard. And I'm going, they were what? I'm going, like, what's the chances that somebody in my father's, and there was, in this program, Wilbur Smith had broken, because the government wouldn't listen to him. So he had these, a group of, we called them the inner circle. There was about 6 people, and Ernie Epp was one of them. So what's the chances 6 people working on this UFO program, one of them happens to work in my father's office, happens to have a UFO sighting, brings me in to tell me this. And so then I go like, wow. And so this is my thing. Like, okay, this is what I need. Somebody's going to tell me what's going on. So I actually I'm a young guy. I fly to Ottawa, and Wilbur Smith is now dead, and I go to his wife. And she was so amazed that this young kid would fly across the country to come and talk to her about UFOs. And she was just retiring from the government. She was really upset with the government and was ready to talk. So I go there, and I remember I picked her up at her house, and we went to her oldest son, Jim, where they had hidden the files. When Wilbur Smith died, he said, they're going to come for the files, hide the files. So they hid the files at James's house. We went there. I didn't know this till years later. But we go to James's house, and I still remember driving this rent-a-car, and I got her in the car, and she's talking, and it's like she's talking about the family pet. Oh, Alpha this, Alpha that. She's talking about this alien, and I'm going, this is the weirdest thing. I couldn't believe it. And it was like real. They were talking to this alien, and Wilbur had this radio communication with it and that sort of stuff. And they channeled this alien at the CIA, and it was like, oh my! And I was just sort of blown away. And then what happens is 1982. I'm there in about 77. 1982, they have the big MUFON conference in Toronto, and a guy by the name of Arthur Bray comes forward with his files, and they get the Canadians to declassify the files, and the top secret memo appears. It's the only really legitimate top secret UFO document, and it's Wilbur Smith writing a document in November of 1950, and he's a very high level radio guy in Canada. So he was negotiating FM radio frequencies with the Americans, and he also ran all the communication channels for the intelligence agency. So it was called Radio Ottawa. They're trying to pick off Russian communications. So he goes to the Americans, and he's kind of interested in this flying saucer thing that started. And he said, I made discreet inquiries through the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., and I was told the following things. Flying saucers exist. It's the most highly classified subject in the United States. There's a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush, and it's of tremendous significance to the Americans. And the very next line, which I didn't learn until 2012 how significant it was, he said, and we were also told by American officials that other things such as mental phenomena might be involved, because the Americans aren't doing very well. They're said, if we're working on it, they're willing to exchange credentials and talk to us. So already in 1950, they knew that mental phenomena was part of the UFO phenomenon, which was very bizarre because the first aliens do not appear until a couple of days after the detonation of the hydrogen bomb. Adamski and Williamson have these beings that they meet in the desert. That's after the hydrogen bomb is first detonated in 52. There was nobody talking to aliens in 1950, and people don't realize this. So how did the Canadians know, or the Americans know, that mental phenomena was involved? And it may be because they had a live alien in 1947 at Roswell, and it was talking in their heads. So they knew there was this mental phenomena thing. So I went to I got all the stuff I could from the Canadian government, and we recovered Wilbur Smith's private files, and we realized one of the guys who was giving him this material, flying saucers exist, it's the most highly classified subject, was a guy by the name of Dr. Robert Sarbacher. So Stanton actually tracks this Robert Sarbacher down in 1983, and then he makes this big disclosure. He says, well, I was in the Navy building, and they were having these discussions, and they had a briefing at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base where they had recovered a saucer in the West, and they were bringing all these high-level guys in to brief us on what they were discovering. And then Stanton said, well, who was there? And dead guy. He's naming all these dead guys. And Stanton says, well, wasn't there anybody that might still be alive? And he said, well, there's this guy from Pennsylvania. He knows everything. He was really arrogant. He thought he knew everything, but he was at all the meetings. And we discovered it's Dr. Eric Walker, the former president of Penn State University, 14 honorary doctorate degrees, all this stuff, just unbelievable credentials. And so one of the researchers contacts him and says, Dr. Robert Sarbach identified you as being at a briefing on, dead aliens and flying saucer at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And he said, yeah, I was there. So what? So for 8 years, we chased this guy around trying to get him to talk. And I've now learned that Kit Green from the CIA went to see him, and that Hal Puthoff contacted him after I made this stuff public, and they were all trying to get him to talk. And he just played these games, but he indicated this was for real, and that this is all the real game, and that you're up against the windmills. Unless you have the mind of Einstein, you're not going to learn anything. And at one point he said, let me ask you a question. What do you know about ESP? And the guy had no answer. He said, look, unless you understand about ESP and how it works, you will not be taken in by the control group. Very few people understand how it works. So he was talking about this mental phenomena thing as well. And what happened, what led to the president is he had a file on us. We knew he had a file on us because he would send one letter he would photocopy the letter, make little snide remarks and send it to one of the other researchers. And he was playing this little letter game. So we knew he had a file with all our letters in it. And we were looking for this file, and he said he was going to leave some of his files to the Truman Library. So that's why that's the reason I went to the Truman Library, and I was asking them for the Walker files, and they really didn't really have what I was looking for. And it was at that point I thought, oh, the president's the most powerful guy in the world. He's got to know what's going on here. So I said, okay, so what do you got on UFOs? And they had this 52 overflight of Washington, and Truman had given a shoot-down order. And all these telegrams inundated the White House to say, Mr. President, don't shoot him down. And they had these telegrams, and I said, that's it? And they had like a couple other telegrams on, but they had nothing. And I'm going, this is kind of weird. Like, you figure there would be all sorts of stuff. So then just down the road from the Truman Library is in Abilene, Kansas, is the Eisenhower Library. I go, I'll go to the Eisenhower Library. I go to the Eisenhower Library, and I'm doing an interview to research there. And they asked me what I'm looking for, and they had 5 documents. So I said, that's it, 5 documents? I said, how many pages have you got here? And they said, 28 million. And I go, holy cow, you only got 5 documents. And that's when I sort of became obsessed. I said, something's going on here. And I basically either FOIA'd every presidential library, or most of them I went to, and I gathered all the material, and I found out there really was no documents. There were, until you got to the Clintons. The Clintons was like a gold mine. I just hit it big. And the Carter Library, there was a lot of material. But most of the libraries, there was really nothing. And so that was my pursuit of the President of the United States. And I worked on that, and then I sort of gave up on it and went after the briefer of the president. So I know who the people who were supposedly briefing the president on UFOs, and I chased those guys. In fact, one of them actually was on my Facebook page today. Ron Pandolfi was actually commenting on my Facebook page today, and he's the guy that's rumored to be the guy that briefs Trump, and the head UFO guy, and the guy that may be behind the stars that's pulling the strings in behind. Noted as the top scientist at the CIA, lots of weird stories about his wife and his kid. And so that's basically how the presidential thing came. But it was basically this pursuit to find out, who knows? I just find the highest level guy and then listen very carefully to what they say. Don't sort of assume things. Just realize that, like people into the stars, you may think whatever you want, but these are very high level guys. I was talking about these guys in 1989. All these guys, and now everybody's come to Jesus on all these people, and they think, oh, these guys that were working for Tom DeLonge, these guys have been around for 30 years. I wrote about them in a book in 1990.
Okay. I want to take a step back here for a second. And you had talked about the idea, even back in the 50s, that the CIA already knew that there was some form of consciousness involved in the alien phenomena. Do you think it's possible that the government created the idea that these were a physical being type entity and physical craft to sort of give something to the public that they could fear, a physical thing that they could fear, versus trying to explain to them the idea of or having it leaked that these were more of a consciousness type being?
No, what I've concluded, and I've only concluded this recently, is that they knew, but Wilbur Smith didn't say CIA. He said American officials. So you have to get this idea of MJ-12. I will maintain MJ-12's for real. It's the real deal. The documents are all phony, but what they're doing is they're taking information, putting disinformation around it, and putting it out. So MJ12 was for real. So they got this group of high-level guys, and that's would make sense. That's what you do. I mean, if you got this phenomena, you take the highest level people you can, and you put them on the problem. And that's where the Jasons came. Like Dr. Eric Walker started the Jasons, and I was the first one to come up with the idea of the Jasons. These top-level physicists in universities who don't do anything during the summer. You grab these people and you put them in summer course things where they work on some atomic bomb problem or whatever, and they're the smartest physicists in the United States. So basically, so you have these officials. So I would say you got to realize that only almost like what Walker said, very few people know about this. So even though you think you're inside the loop, you don't realize this mental phenomena situation exists. Everybody still thinks it's a physical phenomena, or they think it's a demonic phenomena. You heard this story that the Assistant Secretary of the Army believed it was the devil, and we don't want to let the devil into the world and stuff like that. So it does appear to be a physical phenomena, especially when you get the situation where they recovered hardware. So they do have hardware. They do have at least one body. But when you start looking at it and you say, okay, so it's a physical phenomena, it's aliens from another planet. But it's almost like this idea I was explaining before. You take a level and you put it on the Earth and you say, look, the Earth is flat. Look, you can put a level, look at the bubble, it's flat. But it's the more information you get, the more you expand out, you suddenly realize, like, no, just because the level says it's flat doesn't mean the world is flat. And that's what happened here, is that once you start looking at it, you realize the fact that like the rumor is that they can't turn the thing on, that it's at Creed Air Force Base. They have an intact flying saucer, but they can't turn it on. It's like my cell phone. You cannot turn my cell phone on because you need my fingerprint. So it's not a simple thing where you go in, you turn the key of the thing. There is no steering wheel in a flying saucer. And that's when I came to discover is when I talked to people who'd flown the craft, they would say the craft is alive. You fly it with your mind. You become one with the craft. You put your hand on a panel or on a ball, and you become one with the craft, and whatever you think is what the craft does. I mean, that kind of stuff is there would be like 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the people even working on the program that would understand that principle, because it's so highly compartmentalized that people don't really realize. So for even the people in the Air Force, they will go and say, yeah, UFOs exist. They all believe, yeah, it's a physical phenomenon, because it does look like a physical phenomenon, and there is hardware, but it's like the bodies. Like, so you've got a body, so you say, well, it's got to be an ET because look, we've got a body here. But if you look at the alien autopsy video, and if you go to the autopsy reports, you suddenly realize it's got no belly button. So if you and I were to go through a portal onto another planet, we're going to take our belly button with us. So if it's a physical being, why doesn't it have a belly button? Why doesn't it have nipples? And I started asking people who have had experiences, like people who have actually dealt with the being all their life. And I started asking them questions. I said, hey, can I ask you a question? Did it have clothes on? And they go, no, it didn't have any clothes on. I go, did it have sex organs? And they go, no, it didn't. And I said, that seems strange to you, to have any sex organs? I mean, if it's a being and it doesn't have a belly button, it doesn't have nipples, and then they would say it doesn't have a mouth, it doesn't have any ears. And I'm going, well, this is kind of weird. This is like red flags that are saying we're missing the point here. Or you have the autopsy reports where it has no digestive system. So if it's a being, if we go into a portal onto another planet, then you suddenly realize that we're going to take all those body parts, and that there's so many things that don't make sense about even the hardware and the bodies, that you start to look at it, that it looks physical. So they realize that there's but only a couple people, like the head scientist at Lockheed Skunk Works told Tom DeLonge. He wouldn't shut up about consciousness. Eric Walker talked about consciousness. But anybody else in the field is still going to, even Jacques Sarfati, you'll see his board. He's still talking about this as a physical phenomena, and I know how this thing works, and I got the mathematical formulas, and we're going to fly this thing. And then you get Eric Davis, who's on the other side. He's saying, get back, you're connecting dots that don't connect, get back to consciousness physics. And he realizes there's this consciousness connection, but it's so few people who understand this consciousness connection and how important it is, that it may be all consciousness. It's a totally unphysical phenomena, but it can come into the physical world and it can manifest as a physical being. The same as I tie into other phenomena. So now I'm working very heavily on physical mediums. So physical mediums can bring across dead people that physically manifest, and people who have been touched by these people that come across dead people or whatever, will say it was a physical being. So you can come into the world as a physical being. You can only stay a short period of time and you go back into the world. And that, when you start talking to experiencers, that's what they describe. They describe a phenomenon that happens very, very sort of quickly. It comes in as a ball of light. It turns into an alien, and then it goes back into a ball of light. And so my question is it a ball of light, or is it an alien, a flesh and blood alien? And if it's a ball of light, does it eat bacon, eggs, toast, and coffee? So you can see at some points it's a physical phenomena, but at some points it definitely it dematerializes into this ball of light, which is when you go into the spirit world, that's what you hear. The people are balls of light, and they have various colors from white to yellow to blue to purple, and these levels of color. And you start to realize that you get these crossovers to the etheric world, that it almost looks like they're coming out of the etheric world where it's reported. You don't have sex organs. You don't have belly buttons. You don't have nipples. You don't have digestive systems. And you hear in the etheric world and you go, that sounds just like aliens. And that's the questions I ask these people. Or I'll ask somebody, I ask even Betty Andreasen and her husband, 1946, their first sighting. She was like 6 years old or whatever. She's like 80 some years old. And I asked her husband, I said, so let me ask you a question. You saw it in 46 and you've seen it all these years. Did it ever get any older? They go, no, but aliens are a long time. We try to justify this. And people will tell me this over and over again. No, it didn't get any older. No, it was always the same age. And they go, doesn't that seem strange to you? Like, we get older and this thing never got any older, or it was in your last lifetime. And it's those kind of things that trigger you to say, we're missing something here. And I absolutely believe the missing thing is consciousness, and the scientific world is not there. Because with the government, the funding that you're going to get, the only thing the government is interested in is weapons. So unless you can make it into a weapon, they're really not interested in consciousness. They're really not. It's all technology. That's all the government is interested in is can we get the engine out of the thing to fly, to make our SUVs drive for free, and we're going to save money, and we're going to, destroy the Russians with this, and we're going to get it before them and the Chinese. And it's a race for technology. They're really not that interested in the consciousness aspect. Only a very few people, I think, realize this very important connection that there is to UFOs and consciousness.
Grant, I'm going to get you to hold on for 1 second. We're going to step out for our second break. And when we come back, I want to dig deep into that consciousness idea, because you've raised so many questions in my head. And I know you have the answers. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Sunday.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report. Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer. Thank you for being with us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates. KDNF, AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas. KDUN, AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. KZFX, 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. WQEE, 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And UPRN, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we are on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the Spaced Out Radio Vault, and reading up on the SOR Newswire, where you can find Dave's weekly blog, and so much more. Before the break, we were talking to the iconic Grant Cameron, and we were talking about the idea of consciousness. And Grant, you've brought up so many questions, but I the one thing I want to ask is if the alien phenomena is so based in consciousness, the physical beings that we see here or have here, what are they? Are they something that they're able to manifest in our environment and then they just discard when they don't need it? Or how does that work?
Okay, I was talking to a woman this afternoon from Great Britain, and she deals with, she calls the beings. They have no face. They have no sex organs. They have none of that sort of stuff. And so those beings said, we have been with you for whatever is millions of years or billions of years. We've always been around. And you get this message over and over again. There's, if you know the Sherry Wilde story out of, she wrote the book, The Forgotten Promise, out of Wisconsin. She was a real estate person there. And she actually asked, her being was called Da. He was like a gray, looked like a gray. And she said to him, are you actually an alien? And he said, no, not really. And she said, not really? And so why do you come looking like this ugly looking gray thing? And then he said to her, ugly looking gray thing? What do you mean? You ever look in the mirror? When you show those big teeth of yours, we think you're going to eat us. And that's one of the questions I ask people. Did you ever ask him if he was an alien? And people have asked, and they basically say, no, not really. We are what there's a guy from Israel. He's writing a book called One. He had an experience 30 years ago, and they came into his room, and he has a situation where they downloaded this stuff into his head, and then he went on with his life. But he can actually go back to the event and gather more material. You can go back to that event. And he's writing a book called One, which is the basic, the number one message is one. It's all one thing. It's whatever you want to call it, God, the field, whatever. It's all just one thing, and it's all consciousness, and everything develops out of consciousness and it's vibration. And you go through all that kind of stuff. And he actually, the same thing. The being said, we are, how did he put it? We are whatever you perceive us to be. And that's this idea that Jacques Vallée has been doing for years. He said it may tie into the fairies. So if you take a look at the fairies in the 18th century or whatever, if you look at 1895, 96, 97, you had these big airship sightings. And this is one of the things, it's like one of these red flags. It's like, read this again and read it slowly. So you get these airship sightings. Kansas City, they had one with 10,000 people saw on one day. And what you have is wooden ships with propellers with a big light shining down on the ground, and guys hanging down off of ropes. And then the people who interacted with these people who are flying it were dressed almost like Men in Black. They were out of their clothes. They wore weird clothes, and they told everybody they were from Mars. So we say, okay, they fly wooden ships, and they have propellers, and they have a big light, and they come from Mars or whatever. And then you suddenly get the World War II, and you suddenly get the Foo Fighters. So they turn from wooden ships, and they turn into these balls of light off the edges of planes. And then you get they turn into these bizarre rocket sightings in the Scandinavian countries, in Sweden, that were crashing into swamps. And I was just in Sweden, and they said, oh, they still do this. They got these reports, they're still doing this. These mysterious rocket things fly across the sky and go into swamps. and you're going like, what is going on? And then 1947, 48, 49, all the atomic stuff, where we're building the atomic bombs and doing the plutonium processing and stuff like that, we get these green fireballs there. And these green fireballs are flying around, and then they go away, and then the Adamski ships come in, and they got the big balls under them, and you got these human-type beings. And then Betty and Barney Hill come along, and suddenly you get the Greys. Except the Betty and Barney Hill have the big red flag that nobody ever brings out, is Betty and Barney Hill's Greys were wearing hats. Now, why is an alien wearing a hat? It's like, hello, like, this is kind of weird. And then the Greys all take over. You suddenly get the Greys, and then suddenly you get reptilians, and then you get mantis beings. And you realize as you go through the thing, it's not the same thing. It's like we're watching them turn the pages of a book, and it's changing almost according to the way we see things. I'll give you an example. Barbara Streisand's stepson, I won't name who he is, but he's an experiencer, and he contacted me, and his being that he's interacting with told him, we go into your head, and we can only use what's in your head. So if your mind is based in fear, we will take fear and teach you a lesson with it. If your mind is in love, we'll use that. Whatever it is, that's all we can do. We can't put something in your mind that isn't in your mind. So we use this. The same as there's a debate thing that was on the internet between John Mack and Bud Hopkins. So Bud Hopkins believed they were the intruders. Like, these aliens are just bad news. They should get out of here. And he wrote the book, The Intruders. There's a debate thing that takes place in Boston, and they're having this conversation and talking back and forth. And John Mack at one point says, Bud, it's really strange, I'm the psychiatrist here. You think I'd be getting all the real strange bad ones, but I'm getting all the spiritual seeking ones, and you're getting all the bad ones. And maybe that has more to do with you and I than it does with the aliens. And that's this idea that people don't really want. It's hard to fathom the idea that you are part of the experience you're seeing. So you can see that we know this for a fact. There's no doubt that whatever this phenomena, these beings are, they can screen image. So I've got a friend, she's driving down a road, and she's a singer, and is a professional singer in Nashville at one point, and now is had a head injury and stuff like that, and now she's just singing in Oklahoma. She's coming home, and this big giant rabbit's sitting in the middle of the road, and for an hour she's trying, get out of the way, and she doesn't want to drive in the ditch and stuff, and she has this bizarre experience, and then her boyfriend says, Candace, I think you better be regressed, and she of course gets regressed, and it's not rabbits at all. It's a being taking her into a ship. So we know they can screen image. We know they can actually instantly screen image, where you have the one guy sees they appear in a military uniform, and they say, I'm captain whatever, and he says, you're not, you got the wrong uniform on, and he said instantaneously the uniform changed into the right uniform. So we know they can screen image. So the question is, what are we really looking at? Even though they come and they may appear to be physical, they can take the physical form, it appears that they can be whatever they want to be. And what they tell a lot of experiences, we are whatever you want us to be. So whatever you perceive is the way we appear, and that we aren't really beings. We don't really have bodies, and we can take on this form. We just believe that everything is physical and you can't go into there. They know that they can come into this world, become physical, and go back again. Almost like Bashar, the famous alien channeler in Los Angeles, said, we come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world. And that's the whole thing. I think that if I were to guess, I'd say there's some sort of etheric, higher level vibration where these beings are. So they don't have the body parts that we normally have. And so when they manifest into the world, they don't have these body parts, but they're living in that sort of world, and they can come into the world, they can become physical, and they can go back again. And we just think, no, it's just a physical world. This other world doesn't exist. So they're in some sort of, whether you want to call it an etheric plane, some people say a multi-dimension, but it's a field that is less, almost like if you've studied, I say always these things about crossovers with contact modalities. If you go to lucid dream research that was done at Stanford University, people will go into the lucid dream and they realize they're awake. And once you are in that state, and they had people wired and they could actually give the signal, I'm in the dream, I'm awake in the dream. it's a very plastic world. You can change the characters. You can do whatever you want. You can say, I want this to happen. You can ask questions. You get answers. And these people are reporting this very clearly. So we know that when you're in this lucid dream state, and people will say with a lucid dream state, it was more real than the real world. Same as people on psilocybin. It was done at Johns Hopkins. The same thing. It's more real than the real world, and it's very plastic type of world. You can change things. You can move things around. We just think you can't change anything with your mind. They just realize that you can, and that's what they're teaching people. You hear the people on the ship who fly the ship, and I've had 747 United Airlines pilots tell me the story about flying the flying saucer, commercial airline pilots, retired U.S. Air Force colonel in San Francisco or in Los Angeles told me the story, and they're all telling the same story. This idea that you absolutely are controlling this phenomena with your mind, and when you see that kind of stuff, you got to go, because I remember I was talking to the people that were doing some of the people at the free survey, and they said, well, they're flying the ship, with their mind. They say that 14% of the people, and the people report a lot of stuff on board the ship. And I said, but when they start flying the ship with their mind, don't you think we should take a look at this? Don't you think we should go back to these 14% of the people? Because I've talked to 50 of them, and everybody tells the same story. You can say, if someone says, I've flown the ship, you say, stop. How do you fly a flying saucer? Nobody says anything different. They all say the same thing. Oh, you use your mind. You fly with your mind, and whatever you think is what the craft does. And when you get everybody saying the same thing, and this consciousness connection connected to this UFO phenomena, you got to stop and think, what is really going on? Because these people are making it up. It's not something that you're going to make up. I flew the ship. Because I remember the first woman that told me, I thought she was nuts. I said, she was like 75 years old. I'm going, they let you fly the ship? Come on. I couldn't believe it. And then I said, how do you fly a ship? She said, with your mind. Because I had given a consciousness lecture. That's why they set this woman up with me. So you get that consciousness connection, and you get Dr. Eric Walker saying, what do you know about ESP? You get Jan Hartson, who asks, Ben Rich says, we've got the technology to take ET home. And he says, how does it work? How do they get here? And he turns around and says exactly what Walker had said. Exactly. He said, let me ask you a question. What do you know about ESP? And Jan Hartson says, oh, I don't know. Everything in time and space is connected. Ben Rich said, that's how it works. Walks out of the building and gets in his car and drives away. So you got the head guy at Lockheed Skunk Works says consciousness. Ben Rich says consciousness. Dr. Eric Walker says consciousness. The Canadian government gets that from the American government in 1950 already, that mental phenomena is involved. And so whether you believe it's a physical phenomenon or whatever, the consciousness thing is the thing that people are missing the boat. There is a direct, very important connection to consciousness. And it may not be the whole thing, as I maintain, but you're definitely, people are talking about this consciousness connection.
It's interesting that, when you look back at some of the reports of the 50s and 60s, many of them include being able to see like a cockpit window and an alien entity flying a craft, much like we might see a pilot flying a craft. But then as you progress, both the idea and the technology have kind of come to fruition. I mean, in the 80s, obviously, you began really hearing about the idea of it being flown by thought back then, as I think the way it was typically phrased, or not using the word consciousness, but ESP or by thought. Yeah. And then you look today where we have the ability to control things, maybe not planes, but we're gaining the ability to control things just by thought.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the symbiotic thing where you can fly the jet fighter just using your mind. And there was actually the thing Firefox with the movie back in the 1990s with what's his name, the actor, but anyways, Firefox, and the idea that the Russians had got this, and they had this craft that you could fly with your mind. So they're sort of dropping this stuff in, and so you can see the technology they're trying to develop, and it makes sense that you could, because I even have a Muse. I don't know if you do any of the meditation stuff, but I have a Muse thing that you use for meditation, and they've got these experiments with the Muse machine where the person looks at the screen, and you can make balls rotate just by thinking. And what they do is just get your brain pattern, and you think about the thing rotating, and then they say get rotated, and it picks up your brain pattern. And or I've even got the ones I show. This is 2004 technology. It's on. If you Google search rat and I know like what you got to research. But what they did is this is at University of Southern Florida, where they take neurons, 10,000, I think it's 10,000 or 20,000 neurons from a rat brain, and they put it in a petri dish, and they allow this brain to grow. And they say after a couple of days, they show it. First day, it's sort of like all these independent neurons. Second day, they're sort of like you can see these signals going back and forth. And the third day, it's like a brain. I mean, there's all these signals going back and forth. And then they wire in an F-22 simulator. So yeah, I think you take a rat brain, F-22 simulator. And at that time, it was like the top plane you could fly. And there was always this rumor that you used the mind. So they would put a wire into the bottom of this petri dish, and they would send in like a high frequency signal, and this rat brain thing would send back the opposite signal, and they would do it so the wings going side to side and going up and down. And they actually show on this video, this rat brain is flying an F-22 simulator. And I asked George Filer, who was a major in the U.S. Air Force, I said, at one lecture, I said, George, how hard is it to fly an F-22 simulator? And he said, it's not easy. And so you have this rat, there's 20,000 neurons of a rat brain is flying an F-22 simulator that's wired into this thing. And then what they did, they show on this video, they take the weather and they put this huge thunderstorms and winds and crosswinds and stuff. And the brain actually just does it. It actually starts flying the craft. And then they have the one where they get this little robot, and they use the rat brain and they put these things into this little robot, and they're driving this little robot around with this rat brain in it. And that's 2004. That's white world technology. So you can imagine that DARPA and Jason and all these groups, I mean, they're miles ahead of this. They realize this important connection but again, with them, it's technology. It's like, how many people, how effectively can we kill people with this stuff? Whereas we're looking at it from a different perspective in terms of the overall consciousness aspect. But to them, I'm actually doing an interview with a guy a couple days. One of the people who are going to get me in, I'm doing this DNA experiment with trance channelers and trance mediums. And I believe that when the person completely dissociates, the DNA will change. And we've got one white crow. We're looking for the second one now. But anyway, this guy was working with the U.S. military, and he was overseeing various projects. And he maintains that the military is trying to militarize stuff that goes on in seances and ectoplasm. So it's whatever the thing is, whatever it is, whether it's water or snow or ectoplasm or physical mediumship, they're always looking for a way to protect yourself if the Russians get it for a weapon, and can we use it for a weapon? So you get all this psychic phenomena stuff where the military has been working on this because it's very important. Or you take Skinwalker Ranch. There's another example. So Skinwalker Ranch is not UFO. I don't care what anybody says. It's all apport manifestation stuff, which you see with psychics, you see mediums. It's the same thing. Their stuff is dropping out of the sky, and what you get is the woman takes the stuff in. And this is poltergeist. It happens around experiencers all the time. And you go into the house. She's got the groceries. She puts the groceries on the counter, puts all the groceries away, goes in the next room, comes back, and all the groceries are back in the bag. The guy is worried about his 4 bulls. He goes out, where are my 4? Oh, man, I hope they don't touch my bulls. And he goes out, and the bulls are missing. And he finds them in this locked trailer. That is apport manifestation. And that's why the Defense Intelligence Agency went there, because they're going like, wow, if we could make stuff appear and disappear and this kind of stuff, that's what they were interested in. It's this weird stuff where people are able to appear, disappear, move, and that is like the technology stuff. And it's the same thing. It's this consciousness thing where psychics are able to do this, where you see a Ouija boards where people are making apports appear and stuff like that. And you see these crossovers where basically it's all the same thing. It's this underlying consciousness that is able to do this kind of stuff. And the military is trying to militarize it, and the UFO community is still in this thing. Let's prove UFOs exist. Let's do it again. Let's try to convince our friends and neighbors and skeptics. And it's like, forget it. I mean, just get to the point of what is this, and pick up on these clues. Because when you talk to the experiencers, you start learning all these very important things. 14% have flown the craft. 40% of all experiencers say at one point during their experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe. Now, that's not something you're going to make up if you're going to tell a story. And if you've got any brains in your head, why would you not try to talk to somebody who claimed they knew the answer to everything in the universe, especially if 40% of people are doing it? Don't you think we could try to maybe hack this and figure out what they're tapping into? Because if they tapped into it, then the aliens or whoever they are have allowed them to tap into it, and the aliens are tapped into everything in the universe. And that's the whole idea behind music, behind all these downloads. I did 14 Nobel Prizes where the guy's working on the laser or the hologram, and he sits on a park bench. He's trying to figure this thing out. He can't figure it out. He sits on a park bench, and all of a sudden, kaboom, it's in his head. He quiets his mind, picks up the signal, and it's in the field, and it just drops it into his head. Or musicians where, they say, I didn't write this song. Yesterday by Paul McCartney. Wakes up in the middle of the night, and this song is in his head. And he quickly gets up and he writes it down, and then he runs around to everybody for like 2 months and says, did you write this song? You ever heard this song before? Because he for sure that someone wrote it. And it's that kind of stuff. All the stuff is in the field. And it's very resourceful if we can learn to get away from trying to prove UFOs exist and realize that there is possibly a field where people are using various contact modalities, whether it's meditation, psychedelics, head injury, whatever it is, mediumship, and they're able to get in that field. And it makes total sense that you would try to hack the field and try to figure out the answers to questions that you have, because it appears the answers are in the field.
We only have a couple of minutes left before we have to go to break. I want to ask you this quick. If these are a consciousness-type being and they manifest as what somebody may expect them to look like down here, when they leave our environment or our planet, why don't those bodies just sort of disappear or disintegrate or vaporize? Why is it possible that we have some alien remains? Shouldn't they just disappear?
Well, no, because it's all consciousness. So they're coming in and they are able to change consciousness into a physical, same as mediumship, where they're bringing these dead people across, and it's the same phenomena where they come across, they become physical, and then they reappear. Like I'll tell you, the Israeli guy, he talks about the beings when they left. They all held hands and they started to walk around in a circle, and they were going round and around. They went faster and faster and faster and faster, and then suddenly the beings turned into light. They were like light beings, and then the light got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to a small ball of light and disappeared. So the thing is, it's a ball of light. It's not. It can become a physical being, but it goes back into being the ball of light, and they can move back and forth. We think that it's either one or the other, or that their thing doesn't exist. It's all we're just biological robots in a random, meaningless universe. That there is no consciousness. Consciousness is an illusion, and these kind of crazy things that neurology believes. But it's all the same thing. It's all consciousness, and it can change into various forms. It can go through these etheric planes, so it become very physical like we are, and then vibrate higher. That's what people describe, where the being lowers its vibration and comes in. We raise our vibration, and people like the Mission Rama people, where they have these beings inside these Zendra things, these portal things, and that's what they describe. We try to raise our vibration by doing mantras and ohms and stuff like that. And in seances, they're singing. They're trying to raise their vibration by singing, and once you raise your vibration, you can sort of pop into that field. So it's a matter of accessing the field. It's a matter of what I call contact modalities, that getting in, they know the contact modality to move back and forth, and we think it's one or the other. It has to be one or the other, but it's all consciousness. There is no physical world. There is no time. There is no space. It's all an illusion. It's all consciousness, and it can manifest as a what we perceive to be a physical world.
Okay, Grant, I'm going to get you to hold on for another second here. We're going to step out for a break, and when we come back, I want to dig into that a little bit, the whole how this connects to the paranormal and seances, and you had mentioned poltergeists a little bit. I'd like to go down that path a little bit.
Good.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thank you for spending your evening with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR vault, and let's face it, it's cold. You need a hat or a hoodie. You need something from there to keep you warm at night. Joining the Space Travelers Club for $5 a month, where you get to join our forums. There's always some topics going on in there. Joining the live chat. There's a bunch of things in there you need to check out. Now, we've got Grant Cameron for one more hour, and right before the break, he mentioned the idea of seances and poltergeists, and we can't talk about those in UFOs and not go down that rabbit hole a little bit. Grant, I was a little surprised to hear you say that. And can you explain to us a little bit how the idea of an alien may relate to a poltergeist or haunting experience?
Well, you see these very sort of common patterns. If you go back to, again, and get these synchronicity things where Ray Hernandez, who started the Free Foundation with Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who looked at the 3,200 experiencers and gave them the 500 questions about their experiences, whatever. He has this experience after he meets me, and I give a consciousness lecture. A couple of days later, he's on the Miami freeway, and he's in a traffic jam. He's listening to NPR radio, and some guy's on there talking about using body fat to make sculpture, make art pieces and stuff like this. And he's listening to this and says, "Oh, this is kind of weird." And he said, boom, suddenly he's out of his body, and he's in an out of body experience state. And he said what he was shown was visual, and it was like a wheel, and the wheel was moving around, and in all the sort of like the spokes of the wheel, there was different modalities. So there was, mediumship, channeling, remote viewing, UFOs, psychic phenomena, and they were basically saying consciousness is, and in the middle was all consciousness, and it links them all. And what you people are doing is you're parsing these different things. It's all the same thing, all linked by consciousness. So he came up with this idea about contact modalities. And so because I had sort of already gotten this idea that there was these crossovers between different, you'd see these same sort of patterns where poltergeists, for example, poltergeists in haunted houses. But if you ask most experiencers, have you ever had stuff fly around the house or stuff appears and disappears? They go, "Oh yeah," but they don't think it's related. They say, "Oh, it's not related." And I go, "Well, just tell me about it." And so you had these modalities. So they wanted me to do a book. No, they were doing a second book. They put out their first book on consciousness and UFOs. And that's what their conclusion was after talking to these 3,200 people, that this consciousness connection was very important. So I was going to do a chapter in their second book on these contact modalities. And I wasn't getting any. I had really started the article. So I said, I got to get the article started. So I'll just write them all down. And I started writing them down, and I had like 70 some contact modalities. It was just, and I suddenly realized like it is all connected. It's all the same thing. So you may say like you're reading tarot cards, and that's a tool. That's one of the ones with tools. Or you're using a pendulum or something like that, where you're reading the future, or you're reading bones or tea leaves or coffee grounds or whatever. And you see it's all the same thing, where I'll get a tarot card reader and I'll talk to her for a while, and then she'll actually say, I could actually read without the tarot card reads. So you get these people who are very psychic, and that's what you get when you get people who are UFO experiencers. They'll have the experience, and then suddenly they're very psychic. They'll have the, horrible abduction experience or whatever, and suddenly they're psychic and they can see the future. Or 50% of all experiencers claim they can heal people. Like 50%. 50% say they've been healed. 50% say, like Ray Hernandez said, if I had $1 for every contactee who says they're in second stage or third stage, Reiki healing, I'd be rich. I mean, there's just piles of it, and you see this similarity, and so you start to wonder. I mean, is this unique to UFO people? And you realize, no, it's not. You get these healers, or even with brain injuries, or people. I'll ask people, they're UFO experiencers, and I'll say to them, so when did the weird psychic stuff start? And they go, 1992. I had a near-death experience. And then you suddenly realize that 37% of all experiencers have had a near-death experience. And I remember there was actually going to be a study done on this. And I said, well, what do you need a study for? You're just assuming this is a random event. So, yeah, if it's one life, if you only live one time, then that's pretty weird that, all these people have been on aboard a ship and they've also had a near-death experience, because you would think it's two random events. But I knew from my own experience, I was starting to get away from this random thing. And I got basically a download that said, it gave me 24 things, one after another. And one of them was, is the world random? If it's random, then it's one world and it has certain rules. But if it's following a pattern, that's a completely different world with completely different rules. And is it consciousness, or is it, nuts and bolts? They're two separate worlds, depending which thing you take. And I started to realize there was these really clear connections. And in fact, one of the things I'm working on, which it will flip the world on its head. I'm sure it's going to work. And I've actually got some scientists who think it's going to work. We're just looking for the second one. So what we're looking for is trance channelers. So these are channelers like Bashar, who, when he channels, or Daryl Anka's the guy, he channels Bashar. He basically is unconscious, and Bashar takes over the body, it takes over the voice and stuff like that. So that's complete dissociation. So that's, you get right into the field. And that's the whole idea with contact modalities, is there are people who can get partway in the field, and there are people who can get right into the field. So all mediums aren't the same. All channelers aren't the same. There are some that are better than others. So you have these trance channels. Then you have trance mediums, who are physical mediums who where somebody takes over the body, and then they can make things appear, dead people come, make apports appear, manifestations, all these weird things that you see in these seances. And then you have the same thing with people with multiple personality disorder. But those people I couldn't use for this experiment, because they're all trying to put their personalities together. So somebody may have 24 personalities. I've talked to these people. I've been in their sort of group, sort of secretly talking to them without, trying to bug them or whatever, and say, because the one woman would say, when one of my alters takes over, I speak Italian. So I went to her and I said, do you speak Italian? Nope. You ever heard Italian? Nope. Got any relatives Italian? Nope. No connection to Italian at all. But when that person takes over the body, and there's people who can speak two languages, and they can write in Arabic and stuff like this, where they're Americans and they've never had any contact, and suddenly it's the same thing with experiencers, or with people who are channeling or mediums, where suddenly the person that's the dead person is talking in a different language and that person can't speak it. So you see these crossovers. And so the idea was that consciousness is not in the body. The consciousness is like in the field. And when you change the consciousness, so the one that was done was J.Z. Knight, the famous Ramtha channeler, and she did the experiment. So she takes her DNA when she's normal, and she is female from France. That's her main, nationality. And then when she's channeling Ramtha, they take her DNA again, and they do it, and they go to 3 different labs with 3 different samples, and she's Icelandic and male. And that's the whole thing, is if this experiment works, this basically shows this whole thing, that it's all consciousness, that your DNA, you think your DNA is unchangeable, it's there. But I'm almost 100% sure we have some of the top people that, I got a list of this person we want to do. and we're going to run this experiment. And if we get a second white crow where it confirms what Jay-Z Knight had, because there now everybody says, Jay-Z Knight made it up, she faked it, whatever. But if you get a second one, and we got some top people, and that flips the whole world upside down. That just basically says the whole idea of the physical world is 18th century scientific religious nonsense. And we've started to adopt these ideas about the physical world and random evolution and all these kind of things. And when you start looking at it, it is way more complex than that, where you start to realize that consciousness may, as according to a lot of the theories now, consciousness may be the ground of being. It is all consciousness, and that when consciousness starts to vibrate, that's when the physical world starts to appear. And so if you are in that field and you know that, all you do is change your vibration and you become physical. And you change your vibration, you go back into whatever etheric plane you are. And if you have no vibration, then you're just pure consciousness, which people will describe in the field, where it was completely still, it was completely quiet, and they were with the one, and this idea. So the science is starting to back up what has already been described by the Buddhists like 4,000 years ago. It's all an illusion. And you start to get this stuff when you get Eric Walker saying, "What do you know about ESP?" or Ben Rich, "What do you know about ESP?" And they're hinting to us. This is, and then they're not saying this is important. They're saying this is how it works. That's what Eric Walker says. Unless you understand about ESP and how it works, you will not be taken in by the control group that's running the UFO program, because very few people understand they're an elite group. They're not a government group. They're very elite. If you were in the group, I would know you were there. This kind of thing, where very few people understand this. But I think we're starting to understand in the UFO community, there's more and more people who are coming across. A lot of people are using the word consciousness, but I don't think they really understand the principle. But quantum physics has helped us, because we now know with quantum physics, the thing that, time and space may not exist, or it's variable depending on your position and stuff like that. And that, things can be in two different places at the same time. And the more you look at the minor world of quantum physics, the more you realize that the physical world is totally off base, or the idea that everything is space. And we now know this is what the whole 0-point energy thing is about with Hal Puthoff and these guys, is we realize that, in 1 cubic centimeter of space, there's enough to run the world for 100 years or something. I mean, it's not empty space. It's all this, whatever it is, the ether or this, all this matter that we're starting to realize, like the flat earth, that the more information you get, the more you realize we've missed the boat. It's not what it appears to be, and people are basically going according to, it looks like a physical craft flying around the sky, so therefore it's a physical craft, and seeing is not believing in this field.
Okay, I want to take a step back a little bit here, because you've given us a lot of information right there. And one of the questions that popped into my mind while you were talking is, if this is all consciousness and I guess if I have a haunting in my house and I'm seeing my grandfather who's passed on, how does that play into this then? Is that sort of, is it he's moved on to the same plane as this consciousness, or is it something that I'm just seeing as my grandfather because I want to? How does that all play out?
Well, you got to keep the basic thing is there is no here and there. It's all one thing. And the way I describe it is, it's like the ocean. You are in the ocean. We are down in the depths of the ocean where it's very dark. And the occasional time you'll sort of float up a little bit higher, closer to the light at the top of the ocean, and you'll be able to see more. And you go, oh, and then you go back, float back down, and you tell people, I saw this, I saw that. And they go, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. It's just a matter of perception. So if your dead grandfather, it comes, like, I'll give you an example. My father was not a skeptic, but he liked to play the skeptic, and it's all questions, and he'd quiz me and, say, I don't know if I believe in this stuff and stuff. And, I always said at 25 years, I said, holy cow, 25 years with my father. I can't even convince my own father this is for real. So he was a hard, he wasn't, jumping on the UFO bandwagon. And 2 days before he died, or a day before he died, his father comes to him in the hospital. And his father died in 1956. So my mother said to him, he didn't tell me because he probably knew I was going to go, I told you so, I told you so. So he told my mother, and my mother told me this. I said, well, he never told me that. And she said to him, so what did your father have to say? And he said, it was just here. That's all you need to know. And he didn't want to talk about it. But that's the thing. So my grandfather comes across, but he can come in. The same thing as an alien comes in. So my grandfather, say, is in the spirit world or whatever. So there'd be like different depths in the ocean. So you have some that are closer to the light than others. So you'd have these different sort of, not levels, but different areas. And so my grandfather would come to see my father, because it's well known that people come to visit them and help them over the plane and quiet them down and take them over. So my grandfather, for reincarnation is a fact, when I think there's more evidence for reincarnation than there is UFOs, then he lived hundreds of lives or thousands of lives. So why would he come to my father as my grandfather? Because if he came as one of the other lives that he'd lived, my father wouldn't know who the hell he is. So they can come across, they can manifest into the physical world, the same as an alien. They come across, they manifest, they talks to my father, and I'm here, and then goes back into that world. So the aliens, but it's all consciousness. It's all the same thing. There is no here, there is no physical world in them. It's all consciousness vibrating, I guess, at different levels, or we still have to figure out exactly how it works. But it's all the same thing, and it's just their ability to know how to move in and out of the field, or how to become physical and then go back. So you see, that's what I'm saying. You see these crossovers between like near-death studies and aliens. So the aliens, I don't think, are doing anything different. Where they come across, just like a dead person will come to visit somebody just before they die, manifest, or you'll have a spirit. So somebody, you have good energy, bad energy. So if you commit suicide in a house, well, you're going to leave this bad energy. It leaves this implant. And if you're psychic and you're more sensitive, you can pick up the vibration. And so you pick it up. But we are manifesting it all. There's not like any evil alien out there or evil spirit out there. It's all created by us. So we can create, as we can create a physical house in the physical world, we can create a spiritual house in the etheric world or whatever, and we can create bad energies and good energy. And the prime example of that, there was an experiment done in I think it's the 1970s in Toronto, Canada, and this is the Philip experiment, if you've ever heard about this. So what they do is they make up a ghost. And they invent this ghost, and his name is Philip, and he lives in the 16th century, and he has this wife, and then he has an affair and then his wife finds out, and then he accuses his wife of a witch, and his wife gets burnt at the stake, and then he's all embarrassed about this, and he jumps off the tower and commits suicide. So they make this whole story about this guy, and then they try to manifest him in a seance. But what they're doing is they're meditating. And then someone says, well, in seances, you have to raise the vibration, so you should be boisterous and you should sing. They said the first time they did, suddenly, boom, here's Philip. Now, they made him up. They created this thing, and what would happen is when the people would have these different songs. So when the person was in the room who had the song, Philip would know the song. And when the person wasn't in the room, Philip would know the song. And he was responding to all their stuff. And they actually made this, and there's a couple other groups that actually did the same thing. They created a ghost which would actually levitate tables. It would do all this kind of stuff. But it's us doing it. It's not like there's some ghost out there. And that's what we have to realize. We are part of the phenomena. We always think it's us and them. And that was one of the downloads I got in this sort of noetic thing where I got 24 things. It says, Is it separate? Are all we just particles floating around bumping into each other? If it is, that's one world. But if it's all one thing, that's a completely different world. So that's the big thing. Is it separation, or is it one? Is it all one thing? And I say it's all one thing. The Eastern mysticism says that. Quantum physics is starting to say that. All the people who get in the field say that. The mediums and all these kind of people say it's all one thing. And the number one message of the beings, 54% of all experiencers, say they were talked to about oneness. It's this idea. Ben Rich. How does it work? It's all connected. It's all one thing. You've got to realize it's all consciousness, and it's just various vibrations of consciousness. And once you understand the rule, we can move into their world. They're not doing anything magic. They know some stuff about how the world works. We're making false assumptions on how the world is built. It's not made out of little nuts and bolts. It's made out of consciousness.
How does this play into the multi-world hypothesis? If there is no time and space, many people would say, well, that on another dimension there's a you doing something entirely different, and there's an infinite number of those.
Yeah, that gets very complex. The one thing I disagree, I mean, I can see that's happening, but the one that they do is, they say, because the big, and this is where this idea came from. It came from us, the theory of evolution, where you have like, you'd need like 40 million lifetimes of the universe to get all the random mutations that are required for us to get here. So if you suddenly get, it looks like there's another alien and it's exactly the same as us, you'd say, well, it should look completely different than us because it's random. How's the chances you're going to have all these 4 billion random mutations all occurring the same way to produce the same being? And so that's when you came up with this idea to sort of save the random evolution idea. Is you say, well, there's I think they said 1 to the 1,000th universes, and ours is the only one that worked. And that's why we had this random thing happen. I know it's impossible, but you get the idea of big numbers. That you get a big enough number and it's possible. And that's like using one unexplained to explain another unexplained. You just make up something and you say, well, there's like all these, 1 to the 1,000th universes, and that explains it. But you're just making stuff up. And so to me, it's you say there's multiple universes. But even if there's multiple universes, all those multiple universes are still the universe, and it's still all one thing. So you may have a universe that can create different universes, but it all still has the one source. It all goes back, I still maintain, to the one source, and it's all going to still be made out of consciousness. It's not like we can sort of make up a rule. Well, consciousness works here, but they're made out of something else. If there's light in this part of the universe, there's going to be light in that part of the universe. If there's DNA here, there's going to be DNA there. If there's oxygen here, there's going to be oxygen there. Because we know there's stars here, there's stars all over the universe. There's galaxies here, there's galaxies all over the place. It's going to be I believe it's going to be a common rule that it's following a pattern. And that's what we basically, I move, and that's my download was, it's not random. It's a pattern. Things are following a pattern. So you get a cell, you make one cell, and then you get the second cell. And people say, well, it's just a cell dividing. And it's like, well, no, it's not a cell dividing. The second cell has never made a cell before. So the new cell will start to make another cell. And in 16 hours, it will find 100 trillion atoms, because it takes 100 trillion atoms to build a cell. It will find them. It will gather them together, put them in the right three-dimensional space, and then keep them together. Because you say it's random, it's a random universe, it's just random noise. Well, those particles should be able to move around anytime they want, but they keep them in the place, put these particles in these spots, and they make it go, get the life to it, and put 100 trillion cells together in the right three-dimensional spot and do it in 16 hours. And people say, oh, it just happened. And it's like, no, it didn't just happen. This is crazy. It's following a pattern. And if you go back and divide everything back to the beginning of the world, the creation of the world, it'll be one cell that started the whole thing. And that one cell had all the information for everything that has been developed, because it all came from one cell. And so you get this kind of stuff when you start to realize the world is like way more complex. And what science has done is it's just sort of made up what they call naming theory. You say, well, that's just an illusion. Well, what's an illusion? That's just, you give it a name and make it go away. And that's what we've done. And that's where you get into this thing about the multiple universes. You just sort of make up, well, there's multiple universes, and that sort of answers some question that you can answer. And I say you can't use one unexplained to explain another unexplained.
That makes complete sense. Grant, we're going to hop out here quick for a break, and when we come back, I have a couple more questions, about the paranormal for you.
Sure.
We'll be right back on Spaced Out Sunday.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you'd know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent, and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines Report.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the story you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines Report. We are independent, and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines Report.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thaw. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer. Thank you for sticking around with us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates. KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas. KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. For our digital listeners, we are on Kingdom of Night Radio and Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can check out our archives at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR vault, and reading up on the newswire that Captain Shirk puts together so diligently and brings in some fantastic stories in there. You need to check it out. Before the break, we were talking to iconic UFO researcher Grant Cameron. We went down a little bit of a different path, talking a little bit paranormal and things like that. And Grant, before we shift gears here and have to end this up in the next half hour, I wanted to ask you, are you familiar with the idea of the ghost box or the spirit box that many of these ghost hunters and researchers use to contact people who have passed on?
Sure. I've gotten researchers who have talked about this. There's one famous case with Chris Bledsoe. Now, this will end up in Hollywood at some point. They'll be telling this story. They had because he's a very high-level experiencer, there's a bunch of university people, government people, military people who sort of watch him to try to figure out, and that's the way you do it, is this guy's got contact, like why has he got contact, what's different about this guy? And so these university people, and the one woman is contacting me with all these messages they got, and there's this famous burning tree, and he's under the burning tree, and they've got the spirit box. He's sitting there holding a spirit box, and then you see this on the film. It's taken at night. You see this sort of figure moving across the frame of the film, and it gets under the tree, and the head lights up on this thing. And it looks like a astronaut or like a space guy or whatever. And Chris is standing right there with the spirit box. And then they pick it up and they get this message: we've got them. And this whole team, I think it's Chris and the university people, all are missing 2 hours of time. And it was this idea that they may have actually been taken for 2 hours. So they actually offered me the film. They offered me all this stuff. But I was into film. It's like, I don't do film. I looked at it and it was pretty weird. And the spirit box, the only problem I have with them is the idea that it sometimes with these EVP type things, they're so hard to listen to. And I've gotten into stuff that I think is clear, is this what's called direct voice phenomena. I talked to Steve Mira, who runs Phenomena magazine in Great Britain, and I was in London, and he was talking about he spent a lot of money on all sorts of paranormal phenomena, poltergeist and apports and, channeling and seances and all this kind of stuff. And I said, Steve, what's the best thing you got? He said, direct voice phenomena. And this is this thing where a voice will just appear in the middle of the room. You're talking to a dead person, and it's clear as a bell. So I've sort of gone down that road. But as I mentioned, I've got a lot of people who are contacting me because I do these modalities. So the spirit box will just be a modality. How do we get in the field? How do we make contact with an alien or a spirit or whatever? And there's these different people who are building these different machines, radio machines. I mentioned I've just been approached that there's a guy in California who claims, and they told me about this, how this thing had worked, where they told these guys in Wisconsin, this thing's going to go off, all these radios going off, and this guy predicted it. He said, we sent the message, and these beings are contacting back. Or I mentioned the other thing was what's called the soul phone, that I think is Dr. Gary Schwartz is working on, and they maintain that they can actually do yes-no communications to the spirit world, and they're demonstrating this thing. I think this month they're bringing this thing public, and they say it's like a proof of concept. So it's not like you're going to be having conversations, but it's like the first telephone call where one guy invents it, and then it's exposed to the public, and then everybody starts working on this thing, and within 50 years. We'll have the technology down where it's not just one yes or no, where we can actually have conversations. So this technology is being built with all the latest scientific stuff, very smart people. And what they claim, like with the spirit phone, what they're claiming is that they have a spirit team on the other side that is helping them build this thing. And I've seen this in other modalities as well, is that if you can get into the field and you can talk to various people, you can, like the one they were doing with these people who have near-death experiences, where they are people who have regressed to the spirit world, where they ask the people to say, okay, how do you purify water? And you ask this person, and then you ask this person when they're spirit world, and these people will get all these different plans. And so the spirit phone, they claim they've got Einstein. They claim they've got Niels Bohr, the famous physicist, and I think they've got Edison, and all these people. They claim these people are on the other side helping them to build this equipment. So you see a lot of people are building various equipment, and I think it's probably 10, 20 years, somebody's going to come up with something that really works. Where now it's kind of like really rickety technology, but a lot of people are working on this kind of technology, trying to make contact with aliens, spirits, whatever, and some of it's kind of impressive.
Some of it is, and I've seen many demonstrations. In fact, Bill Hauser, one of Dave's regulars, bi-monthly guests, has done some readings, private readings for me, where we've talked about different things, and he's done this publicly too, where he will ask about aliens, and it does seem like the responses that he gets differ between asking, for a loved one or something like that, and trying to communicate with aliens. It does seem like there is a definite difference, like they are able to come through in some form.
Yeah, that's what all I'm saying to people is, don't just sit there and look at UFO photographs, medals, because that doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, it'll tell you, yeah, something's going on, and we probably didn't build it. There's people out there, like these guys with the spirit boxes. We've got to be watching these people, because they're on the leading edge of discovering not only are we not alone, but who these people are, and we can actually talk to them. And if they've come this far or wherever they're coming from, they're probably a little more advanced than we are, and they can give us some answers to some of the problems that we have in this world. And I just can't believe that people would continue to try to prove UFOs exist when there's these stories of these people who have these kind of modalities and working on this kind of stuff. To me, that's where we should be going all the time, and forget about all the, trying to prove to our friends and neighbors, because the way it works is you're not going to prove it to anybody. I mean, I'm doing the Stanton Friedman files, and I've been there, and I'm going back in in June. I got 6,000. I probably have about 12,000, 15,000 pages in June. And Stanton spent his whole life arguing with Carl Sagan and Philip Klass and Menzel. He didn't convince anybody, and they didn't convince him. So basically, it's the old idea that that's why people don't get abducted when they're old. You get abducted when you're young, because once you're old, you're totally useless. I mean, any alien that wanted to get in your head would have to get huge rubber boots and a big shovel to try to get deep enough in your head to put an idea in there, because you got all this garbage, you have all these political things. And we talked about music. That's why I believe that musicians are being used, because I always say the story. When you've got a kid between 1 and 10 years old, you as the parent are your kid's hero. The minute the kid is 10 years old, it's like, Dad, could you walk 10 to 20 feet ahead of me, please? And when you're 16 years old, they don't even want you in the area when they're around. They don't even want anybody to know that you're a father, because they're building their own ego. They're building their own identity, their own worldview. They don't want to be associated with your music or your ideas. You're an old fogey. I don't want to listen to you. I've got, my friends know more than you do. And so if you're an alien or a spirit and you want to get an idea across to the world, who are you going to go to? A kid who's between 10 and 25 years old, who is their hero? It's musicians. So if you want to put the message, you get the kids before they have their ideas set, because once they're 25 years old, it's a total waste of time. All their ideas are set. So that's why I believe they use musicians, is to get the kids in this very prime period of life when their minds are still open, when they're still building worldview, and when they want to change the world, they want to do something, and they're looking for something. So they stick these ideas in musicians' heads. That's just my basic belief.
I'm going to completely agree with you there. And we only have a little over 10 minutes left. And I know this might be a little bit out of your wheelhouse, but one of our listeners, Gutter, is asking how he feels he's being targeted by beings or entities. Is there something he can do to get himself untargeted?
My belief is you manifest whatever your situation is. So if you believe the devil is a bad guy and you can manifest the devil, you will produce the devil. It's this idea that whatever level you're at is what beings you get. That's his idea where Max said to Bud Hopkins, like, why is it I'm getting all the spiritual ones, you're getting all the bad ones? And I would say that it's all one thing. There is no separation, and you have to take responsibility for what you're getting. What we find with the free people, with the survey, is the more you get regressed, the more experiences you have, the less fearful it becomes, the less evil it becomes. And so a lot of the people who, and most people don't realize, there's only 9% of experiencers, according to the free survey, who believe the aliens were evil. So Ray Hernandez and I guess other people went back to these 9% of people and said, why do you think these things were evil? Well, because they scared the daylights out of me. And he said, that's it? And most of it was reptilians. Like if you find a 9-foot reptilian in your room, I mean, you're gonna be a little bit petrified. But what they found, and that's according to 3,200 people who did the survey, the more you deal with it, the more experiences you have, the more you know about it, the less fearful it becomes. And so that's the only thing I can really suggest. Or you go through the regression and you find out what's actually going on. And I would maintain that when it's all said and done, if you're very fearful person, you are going to manifest grays. You're going to manifest a fearful presentation. There is no separation. You've got to take responsibility. There is no separation between you and what it is. If it's all consciousness, you are producing whatever is around you. And that's a hard thing, but quantum physics is starting to say that. It's like John Wheeler, who won the Nobel Prize. He said it's a participatory universe. Nothing happens without an observer. And that's the thing that quantum physics is starting to set, and that we have to reinforce, is that you say, no, it's separate, I'm a victim, and they're after me and stuff like that. And I maintain, even if they're after you, you still have to take responsibility, take control of this thing, do whatever, tell them to get lost or whatever, that we have to realize we are part of whatever's happening around us, and we have to take responsibility. And quantum physics is starting to show that. That's this idea about the participatory universe, that everything is a quantum state, and then when the observer, that's when the quantum wave breaks down, and that whatever is manifesting is being produced by observers.
What about those people, though, that experience both negative and positive events? What does that say about them?
Well, most of the thing is the people have to start with like Chris Bledsoe. I'll give you an example. Chris Bledsoe, they were going to do $80 million Warner Brothers story on him. When the experience happened, he was a very religious guy. And so he had this experience and he was devastated. He was sitting in a room for 9 months praying to God to take him away. I mean, his life had come apart. I mean, it was like, he was this religious guy. He got thrown out of the church for dealing with the devil. His wife wouldn't really talk to him. For 9 months, he was not allowed to talk to his kids. He was absolutely devastated as to his whole life had fallen apart. And then he had a regression by Dr. Michael O'Connor, who was an associate of John Mack. And suddenly in this regression, they say, when did you first meet the beings? They have been with me since before I was born. And he suddenly realizes he's got this message. And suddenly he's like, he's going to save the world. It's completely reversal. And then in 2012, 5 years after his experience, he has an experience with this angelic type being. And that's what you see is, I have a girl, we published her book. It was reptilians. And she said the reptilians, there was nothing wrong with her reptilians that she was with. And then her later experiences were angelic beings. There is nobody that I know of that I've dealt with experiences where they've only had one being. They've had this being, and then this being comes in, and then this being comes in, and it's like this idea, like, what are all the beings working together? It's these cues, these red signals that make us say, it's not what we think it is. Like, if you got grays, you should have grays your whole life. It's never just grays. It's like grays, and then you have the mantis come in, and then there's humanoids, and then there's angelic beings. And I still maintain that you have to take responsibility for at least recognizing that you have something to do with what? It's almost like the idea with psilocybin. When they do the psilocybin stuff, or in lucid dreaming, same thing. When they do psilocybin, the high dose psilocybin at Johns Hopkins, they know that person at one point during the psilocybin experience is going to have fear, and they are going to encounter a devil or an evil alien or something, and they have someone in the room, and when it comes, they grab the person by the hand and they say, it's okay, go towards the being. Do not walk away. Please do not walk towards it, confront it. And as they say in the lucid dream world, you give it a big hug and a kiss and treat it with unconditional love, and it will turn into a positive being and give you a message. It's this idea that you can control it. And so that's all I can really say. You have to take responsibility for the fact that you have something to do with what's happening around you. You're not a random object floating around in a random world where you've got a bad rap and somebody else has got a good rap. A lot of people will talk about, or I'll say, for example, even if it's evil aliens, say you assume it's evil aliens. I asked Mary Rodwell, I asked Kathy Martin, I've asked all these people. Okay, if you take the person back, you regress them to Earth, to birth, how many of them will say, I chose this situation? I asked Kathy Martin that. Mary Rodwell said 100%. I asked Kathy Martin. She said, I used to think about that. So I actually got myself regressed back to birth, and I actually heard the words come out of my mouth. I chose this. So you have to take personal responsibility. If it's soul contract, if it's multiple life universe, you came into this world to do something, and you have to take responsibility that maybe you chose to have a near-death experience. You chose to be an experiencer. You chose to live in America. You chose to be poor. You chose, and stop blaming Hillary Clinton and the evil aliens and all this other thing and play the victim role. Because I'm going to say it's going to be soul contract. It's a multiple life universe, and everything that happens to you is experience, and you learn from it or you don't learn from it.
A lot of us may not be conscious of our making or creating the soul contract. We are capable of changing it, though, right? Changing it and our experiences or outcomes.
Well, no, but the belief is very strong. So if you don't believe there's a soul contract, you're not going to change your belief. It's when you suddenly get a regression where you hear the words come out of your mouth. Yeah, I agree to this. Or I talk like I have I don't know if you've ever had him. You should interview him. His name is Steve Boucher. We're helping him publish his book. He's a musician out of St. Catharines, Canada. The entire band was abducted. And he tells the story. Him and the Moody Blues tell the same story. they told it to Colin Andrews, that they remember before they were born. So you start regressing people back, and that's where it changes. You regress them back before birth, and suddenly the Moody Blues say, yeah, we knew we were going to be musicians, and we knew we were going to put lyrics into songs, and we came back in, and the Pinder and the lead guitarist are telling Colin Andrews, they're going back and forth, and Steve Boucher, the musician out of Canada where the entire band was abducted, said, I remember before I was born. He said, I was there, and we're looking at the Earth, and it looked like we were on the moon. I'm with this being. And he said, you got to go to Earth. And he said, I remember this very, very clearly after I was regressed by Bud Hopkins, and he had a bunch of regressions in Canada. He said, I remember very clearly. I'm standing there, and he said, you got to go to the Earth. And he said, I'm not going there. I heard about that place. I'm not going. He said, no, they need you there. And he said, well, no, I'm not going. How long do I got to stay? And the guy said, 60, 65 years. And he remembers clearly. There's a lot of people, when you regress them, they remember. Chris Bledsoe, that's what they asked Chris Bledsoe. It's changed his mind when they said, when did you first meet these beings? He said, they have been with me since before I was born. And that was a real religious Pentecostal guy who was not into pre-life and reincarnation and stuff like that. And he heard the words come out of his mouth. And when you hear the words come out of your mouth, but a belief system, you're not going to change your belief system unless you have an experience. You have a noetic experience, or you have an experience in regression where you suddenly realize that, yeah, you've been around before, and this is a soul contract. I don't think people will confront it if they don't actually experience it. I don't think people will believe it.
We've only got a couple of minutes left here. What would you tell the people who are fearful of regression or don't trust the idea of regression?
Okay, I've asked almost all of them. I asked Barbara Lamb. I asked Kathy Martin. I asked Mary Rodwell. And between them, they've probably done 10,000 regressions. I said, have you ever had a case where you regress somebody where the person was worse off after the regression? Absolutely. Nobody said, absolutely not. You're always better off after the regression. It may be a very rough road when you suddenly find out what's actually going on and relive these experiences, but they all say the same thing. No, there's absolutely no case that they've ever seen where the person was worse after the regression. But it is, once you open that door, then it's open. I mean, then you suddenly are going to learn what's going on. And it could be rough when you suddenly, all your worldview starts to fall apart as to what you thought was going on, and you encounter this stuff. But the free survey shows that the more you know about it, the more experiences you have, the less fearful it becomes, and the more people start to become like messiahs. They're running around, they're going to save the world. I'm on a mission, and I've seen this over and over again where, they go from these fearful little people who don't know what's going on, and that's why I have an experiencer group that I run every second weekend where I invite people on, because what people need is support. They need someone to basically tell their story, because when it happens to you, you are just like, you have no choice but to be absolutely fearful, like what the heck is going on, and what is, and you're trying to figure it out, and that's why you have these support groups. So I have a support group, and people can come if they're an experiencer, and they can sit there, and it's like Experiencers Anonymous. So they can sit there for 2 years and never say a thing. They can turn off the camera, turn off their audio, and just sit there and watch people tell stories. And suddenly somebody's going to tell their story, and they're going to realize, I'm not the only one. And that's what people basically need, is support. If you are fearful, you need to get to a support group, to people who have had the experience, and they will tell you, they've been there. This is what it is. Go here, do this, and help you through it. Because if you don't know, fear comes from not knowing. You start to make up stuff in your head, what you think is going on. You need a support group. You need to get in there and figure out what's going on. And in the end, my personal belief, it will not be the fearful thing you think it is.
Grant, we are out of time. Can you tell people where they can find your information and what you're going to be up to?
Okay, my basic two sites. I have Beyond Presidential UFO is my my website. Most of my new stuff is published on my Presidential UFO Facebook, and I do a lot of interviews with experiencers and consciousness ideas on my White House UFO YouTube channel. So those are the three things that people can go. And I'm doing lectures like around, but that's not that important because, well, I'm doing Manchester in June, Manchester, England. I'm doing this event in outside Chicago in August. I'm doing Sedona, Arizona in April. That's a music lecture. The Illinois one is a music lecture. The one in Manchester is a lecture on my theory as to what I think is going on. I go through time, space, abductions. I go through all this stuff. What I think after 45 years is actually going on. And I'm getting some pretty firm beliefs as to what I think is going on. So those are the three sort of main events that I'll be doing.
Grant, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has really been an honor to have the opportunity to talk to you.
Well, I really appreciate your interest, and let's do it again sometime. I'm always willing to talk.
I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to see you in Chicago.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you. We will be right back after this break with William Pullen.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at Kajans.com.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Well, we're back. Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping in the SOR Vault, checking out the Space Travelers Club, and so much more. Now, I actually had William Pullen on the line, and I don't know what happened, but he disappeared, and I seem to have some form of, well, we'll call it a difficulty getting William on the line. There seems to be something wrong with my Skype of some sort, so we're going to try something. And it's going to be a little weird, but what we're going to do is try and reach out to William on my phone, and we're just going to see if we can connect with him, because we were actually talking about the Charlie Red Star flap during the break, and we were also talking about his take on this consciousness. So this might sound a little rough, which I hate to do, but we are going to try it just to see what happens. Because that's how we roll kind of around here. And it seems as though we're having a problem with that too. So I guess what you're going to do is either, William, I know you're listening, if you can get a hold of me by Skype, I don't know exactly what's going on here. If you can get a hold of me by Skype, otherwise you guys are, well, you're going to hear me ramble for 20 minutes, which is probably okay because I didn't get to say much in the previous 2.5 hours. Grant is an incredible researcher. He's a great guy, and he has a ton of information. But sometimes he he drops a lot on us quickly. And, gosh, I'm still kind of soaking it in, taking it all in. And I have no idea how I'm going to ramble for 20 minutes. I know one of the things that Grant is digging into and he's very excited about is the Stanton Friedman archives. And I had hoped to get into that with him a little bit. I'm just trying to reconnect a little bit here with William, but it doesn't seem to be working for some reason. And I think that there's a lot of information out there in Stanton Friedman's archives, but I don't know how it's going to relate to the idea of the consciousness hypothesis or the ultra-dimensional hypothesis, because Stanton Friedman was so nuts and bolts, and I'm not sure how that's going to work out. And another thing that we didn't get to talk with Grant about is the idea of Bigfoot and dogmen and some of these cryptids possibly being I think we have William, can you hear me? Let's see if we can make this work. Oh, I hate when we have Skype difficulties. I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Give me 1 second. Let's see if we can fix this. Anyway, I'm not sure how this whole interdimensional or consciousness being thing fits into Grant's hypothesis, but we're gonna see. I'm just curious if I can even get him. Yeah, William, this is not working very well. Very disappointing after that kind of interview to have something like this happen. The one thing that I know that I was talking to William about, obviously, is the idea that here again is another flap, another situation where you have multiple people over a course of months or weeks seeing these craft. And this is one of those cases, the Charlie Red Star case, where it basically got ignored. And I've talked to William, and William, I know you're on the line, but the speaker or the microphone is not picking you up very well at all, even with the volumes pushed all the way up. This is one of those cases where it gets ignored again. And William, you had made the case that, well, it's in Canada, and maybe that's why it was ignored. But, it was only 75, 80 miles over the border. And I would be curious to see if at that time there were any reports in the U.S. area, in that general region about some form of UFOs or something, because it does seem to be primarily a Canadian event. But if it's that close to the border, I would think that somebody would have seen something here in the U.S. And I'm not sure if there's any reports on that.
Yeah, you're right. It was very close to the border with Canada, and I've come across documentation
Well, you know what, William? You're barely being picked up at all on the microphone. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you go, and I guess I'm just going to, I'm going to ramble for the next 15 minutes because I don't know what's going on with Skype, but it works on one. Well, I should say it's working on both, but for some odd reason, I wasn't able to call you on the other one, and I'm gonna sit here and play with it and try and see if I can solve it, but I'm not sure I can in the 15 minutes we got here. I think it's something with Skype because it worked perfectly for Grant, and actually it worked perfectly for you and I for about 3 minutes. So I appreciate it. We're going to have you on real soon. And in the meantime, everybody's just going to hear me ramble until I can't ramble on anymore. So I will talk to you soon because, everybody wants to hear me have a one-sided conversation on the phone. All right, I'll talk to you later. Oh, that's the beauty of live radio and technology. You never know exactly what's going to happen, and we're gonna muddle through for the next 10 minutes. I had no idea that doing radio would involve so much talking. Well, not so much tonight, except for the last 20 minutes or so, huh? But Grant raises some really interesting questions. And one of the things that I have noticed talking to a lot of different people, especially people not in the UFO field, is that there is this idea coming around that there is this sort of mass consciousness or untapped consciousness that we're all connected to, and that is the root of everything from some of these or all of these ghost encounters to UFOs, and I was surprised. I've talked to several people who, well, they're not at all involved in the UFO field, but because of their involvement in some of these other fields, they're beginning to get themselves involved in the UFOs in the UFO field because they're beginning to see this connection. And then when you have somebody of Grant Cameron's stature who you can't dismiss his research. He's put his time and his effort into it, and he's a smart man, and he knows what he's talking about. When you have somebody like that coming along and supporting it, it's something that I think we all have to consider. It's very, very hard to ignore, and I originally came from the extraterrestrial hypothesis. I thought everything was nuts and bolts. And the more I talk to these people, the more I begin to change my ideas and see that it might be something more than that, especially when you start to factor in things like Bigfoot and the sightings that people have and how Bigfoot is seemingly able to appear and disappear, and you can throw in the old idea of the photos always being pixelated and things like that. Maybe that's an effect of this being a more of a consciousness being or something like that. The only thing I don't really understand is the idea that if they're a consciousness being, why are they creating bodies at all? It seems to me that they would be able to do many of the things that people report them doing by simply just existing. But who am I to judge? Yeah, I'm just filling time here, counting down the clock, because I don't have things to say. I just have questions. But we're just plugging along here. God, this is horrible. I'm really disappointed that whatever's going on with Skype has prevented William from joining us, not just because, well, it's nice to have somebody to talk to, but because we were going to talk about, some of these things. Again, the idea of these flaps being ignored. We always hear about the individual sighting, or one or two people ran across or had an experience on a roadway or something like that. But then we miss or ignore flaps from Michigan to this one to, there are so many out there that have credible witnesses, military and police witnesses, and we seem to dismiss them, or they get lost or ignored. And it's curious how we can take an account that might be one or two people and really study that, really analyze that, critique it, write papers about it. But then we have all of these different sightings or flaps that just get dismissed. I mean, the Phoenix Lights is a different situation in terms of a mass sighting, but there have been so many that, and William and I have talked about it numerous times, they just get lost and ignored. And it seems like there's value in those reports that we're missing. I don't know what it says about the community. I don't know what it says about individual researchers, but it just seems like we're overlooking an awful lot. Yeah, you heard me drink a bottle of water. I'm still too sick to drink coffee. That's terrible. That's horrible. I really just don't have that much to say. I just realized it. I can't even have a psychic call in and give you guys readings. Well, maybe I could. Well, no, not with just a few minutes here. So, one of the things, or another thing that kind of has me thinking is, Gutter had messaged in a question about becoming untargeted by these beings, and I'm not sure that. If they are a consciousness being, so to speak, is anybody being targeted? Are we creating this? And if we are creating it, like Grant said, we create it ourselves. Are they real at all? Are we just manifesting them? And I didn't get to ask Grant that, and it's probably best I didn't. But it's interesting, and Grant has given us, I think, a lot to think about. And we should probably do that. Gosh, we're just running out of time. Hey, has anybody seen my Les Pauls lately? Just out of curiosity. Oh, I have. Let's tell Dave that. Should we try and get William on for a couple of minutes? I need somebody in the studio. I'm going to start having a guest here, just sitting on a chair in the studio, just waiting for their moment. Nobody will do that. I don't see anybody doing that at all. Today I got to, for just a second, see a show called Ghost Loop. I didn't even know it was on, didn't even know it was new. Don't even know what I think about it, but it's yet another show, paranormal show coming out, probably doing similar things as all the other ones. It'll be fun to watch and see, if these shows continue to follow a pattern, if something changes. I don't know. I just don't know. I really don't have much to say or much to go over in just a couple of minutes, and we're lucky because you know what? We're almost out of time. And believe me, this has been the longest 10 minutes because I just don't have that much to say. I know that Rich and Dave have gone over their experiences, and the truth is I don't have that many experiences. I just have experiences that have made me have more questions. I don't know how many of them are paranormal. Many of them could have had typical everyday explanations? I don't know. But you know what? With that, we are so lucky. Especially you, so you don't have to listen to me babble anymore. We are going to we're going to get out of here, and I want to thank Grant Cameron for coming on and talking to us, and I want to thank William Pullen for stepping up and filling in that last half hour, or at least attempting to, because we had a bunch of different things we wanted to talk about, and we'll get him on. We will get him on at some point, and we'll go over the stuff. So with that, we're going to start hopping on out of here. Oh, we've got Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. A special thank you to everyone listening in at home, in your cars, at work, in our chat rooms, and wherever you may be. Remember, this show is copywritten by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thanks for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. Get us out of here.